Welcome to the Pin Leader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The Pin Leader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
And welcome to the Pin Leader Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about charismatic presence, and I am so glad to have with me today Eleni Kelakos, who is known as the Speaker Whisperer. She has a presence and presentation expert. She's the president of Eleni Group, established in 2003. She uses performance techniques learned over 20 years as a professional actress and award-winning national touring singer and songwriter to help speakers and business leaders across the globe present with more authenticity, confidence, and impact. She's coached individuals. She's trained with companies for General Motors, Allstate, Little Caesars Pizza, University of Michigan. She's a double major in not only theater, but semiotics from Brown University. Eleni is the past president of the National Speakers Association of Michigan. She has sung the national anthem at Shea Stadium. I think this is just the coolest thing. For 3 winning Mets games and has produced 4 acclaimed CDs of original songs. Eleni is the author of 3 books: Touch the Sky, Find Your Voice, Speak Your Truth, Make Your Mark. Also, the Claim the Stage, A Woman's Guide to Speaking Up, Standing Out, and Taking Leadership. And that 3rd book, which is coming out in 2025, Charismatic Presence, 5 Principles for Magnetic Presentations. So without further ado, Eleni, hello.
Hi.
So you have a number of books there, and bestseller I see too.
Yeah, very proud of it. Very proud of all those babies, those book babies.
So talk to me a little bit about really how you got into this, and then we'll get into that charismatic presence.
Well, I started out as an actress in New York City and in Hollywood, and that was my life. I mean, my life was auditioning and interviewing and booking acting jobs. And as any actor would tell you, the hardest part of an acting career is not when you get the work, it's trying to get the work. And so those spotlight moments where you had to show up in interviews were really tough for me for several reasons. One was that I was inconsistent in the spotlight, so to speak. I not necessarily after I'd been cast, but when I was being looked at and judged, those eyeballs on me, right? I would get that feedback from casting directors through my agents. Well, Eleni just didn't bring her sparkling self to it as well as she normally would this time around. So I realized I needed to learn how to be consistently present and relaxed and at my best in those kinds of scenarios. And that actually formed the kernel of the work that I currently do all these years later. I learned from top level acting teachers the tools to do those things, which not only helped me in my auditions, but frankly have helped me in my life as a human, as a woman, as a business owner, and certainly as a speaker myself.
Mm-hmm. What do you think has been the most challenging scenarios, like with those that you work with who need to speak to groups, since you have so much experience with this?
Oh, they're just terrified. They're terrified. Their hearts are beating hard in their chests. Their palms are sweating. They're experiencing high level fight or flight symptoms, which is really normal when you get in front of a group of people. And we're human. We want it to go really well. We want to impress people. We want to be perfect. And every time you try for a result like that, you're going to hit and miss. You know what I mean? You're just going to swing and miss, rather. Because the truth is, aiming for perfection, trying to get people to like you or hire you or impress them, that's something that's out of your hands. What you have to be able to do is manage the anxiety, manage the adrenaline, step into it prepared and ready to rock, and then relax into the moment as it unfolds, sharing your message. So fear can stop you from doing all of those things. So managing the fear of speaking up in meetings, in presentations, in spotlight moments is probably the largest challenge, the biggest challenge that I've had to help people with in my work. Since I established my business, the Eleni Group, it'll be 22 years now.
That is amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Doing that work and then working with the groups and individuals. It's interesting when you talk about the nerves, that people in the fear that really work into that. I taught public speaking classes, and I had individuals who would sweat, and truly you could see all of their nervousness. What is it that you suggest to leaders when they know they have a stage fright thing going on?
Well, it really depends so very much on the severity of it, right? But no matter what, I'm always telling them, it's in your hands. You have the ability to calm yourself if you choose. You have to know what your center is. And one of the things, I have a very simple tool that I like to share with people. I call it FBI, as in FBI. But it's foot or footing or foundation. B as in breath, as in bring your breath into your belly, and I for intention.
Mm-hmm.
And let me explain it briefly here. I'm suggesting to people that they get themselves centered and ready before they step into a scenario where they're going to get thrown or potentially get thrown. And the first thing to do is to find your feet, feel the floor through your feet, wiggle your toes in your shoes, and ground yourself. And if you happen to be doing a Zoom call, then feel your bottom on the chair and the back supporting you as well as your feet. Ground yourself. B is for breath. Bring your breath into your belly. And I'm always telling people breathing is your best friend when it comes to managing the fear of public speaking. I like to teach people very, very simple mindfulness breathing. Like, breathing in for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 6, and repeating that 10 times with your eyes closed. By about time number 7, you will have wrestled yourself away from the sympathetic response that your body is going through, your body's natural reaction to fear of something. You'll have started to calm yourself. So FBI. And I is intention. It's knowing why you're there. Like I said before, you're not there to impress. You're not there to make them like you. You're not there to be perfect. You need to have some kind of an intention that is personal to you that you can hold on to and work on. Like, my intention is to stay breathing and relaxed moment by moment. Or my intention is to show up just as who I am, and share myself with my audience. Something that you can remember and do that's within your power. So bringing yourself to that space before you step in. And then if you have a moment where you're thrown, doing a small FBI moment, going back to FBI. The only difference I suggest there is that you always have water with you, and, find the floor with your feet, take a nice sip of water and exhale. After that, you're forced into doing that after you take a sip of water. Take that sip, exhale. Inhale and exhale a few times. And as you're doing that, think, what is my intention? What am I here to do? What is the task at hand right now? And then step back in. Give yourself a moment to collect yourself.
I think your point there about being mindful and present, so critically important. So many students I've had in the past and those that I work with coaching, they're thinking about what's going to happen next. They're not actually taking in the moment that's present. And that is the challenge. So you're grounding. I love FBI. I think that's something simple, easy. Why you're there.
This notion of charismatic presence that I talk about, the word presence in there is critical. Presence equals being present. Presence equals being present, a willingness to be present. We all have this charismatic presence that I talk about. We're born with it. It's this beautiful life force that we all have, that when it's left to its own devices it's large and magnetic. Every little baby that you ever see, you could just stand there and hover over their crib and look at them blowing spit bubbles, and they're utterly magnetic, But it starts to get smaller as we move out into the world, and we start worrying about what people think of us and wanting to impress. And so I bring this up because this notion of presence, being actually present in the moment, which is so key, is scary for people. People's they tend to squiggle out of the moment. like you said.
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking ahead. They're worrying in their head. They're playing with Mo and Schmo, their inner judges, the little naysayers in their head. And that's pulling them right out of the moment. And in my opinion, if you're not present, right, you're not in the moment with your audience of one or many, and they don't connect with the best of you.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think about so many presentations that I've seen over the years, and the ones that really hit it out the park, and they are charismatic. I also think of those that are, I would call overly charismatic, where they're so wrapped up in what they're doing, they're almost animated to the point.
Yeah.
And I've seen over the top. Can you talk about the balance between that? You've seen probably both of that too.
I have. When I was coming up, if you will, I had this idea that charisma was that kind of over the top thing, da 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 da, that sort of those people that just sort of chew up the scenery in the room, they're just, but I had a complete shift around that. I went to see a play when I was in my mid-20s, and there were about 22 people on the stage in the opening big number. It was a big musical number. And in the back was a little tiny girl. She was maybe 7, 8 years old, and she was holding a book in her hands, sitting in the back, and all she was doing was reading that book. She was literally reading the book, slowly, page by page, while all this cacophony was occurring around her. And I couldn't take my eyes off this child. She was so present. She was so fully engaged in what she was there to do in the moment that she was absolutely magnetic. And I thought that is what charisma really is. It is that life force unfettered, harnessed to what you're there to do in the moment. And that's all that was occurring up there. But honestly, she was the person my eyes went to. And rather than the people who were frankly acting up a storm in the front, I mean, really pushing is the word that I like to use, pushing to be noticed almost. Pushing to have that presence. It's not about pushing. It's about revealing. It's about being. It's about allowing yourself to bring who you are to the moment, what you know, who you are, what you've experienced, your perspective.
I think as leaders too, when we talk about being sharp, having the strength of character, and having a straightforward plan with an ability to pivot, if you cannot communicate effectively your message, all of that goes out the window. It doesn't matter.
You're so right. It's everything. I work with many entrepreneurs and people running small businesses, for example. And I'll say to them, if you can't convey your big idea or your message, I don't care how good it is. It won't matter. If you can't help your team feel and see and experience the vision you want them to walk toward to such a degree that it grabs them by the lapels and pulls them toward it, you're not going to get the buy-in that you need from them to do what needs to be done to potentially get through a challenging time or a pivot or change that needs to occur to move to a higher level. So, and I believe that the soft skill of clear, cogent communication is everything. Communication is everything on every level. And you're communicating in words, you're communicating through, I call them the three presence planes: your physical presence, how you're commanding the space around you physically, your vocal presence, certainly the words that you're using and the tone and the, your willingness to be clear and precise, and that energetic presence, that vibe that you're putting out that people can feel. And that's often dictated by your fears, your limiting beliefs. So when I work, most of the people that I'm working with are in leadership positions, and it matters how they convey their message, whether they're getting in front of a board of directors, whether they're trying to fundraise, whether they're just trying to get their team to move toward a goal. It matters so deeply. They have to be able to do it in small groups, big groups, with the media. It's about as critical as it gets, in my opinion.
I think it's a make or break for a company. I think your position, how you're seen and viewed, can you bring that story forward? Is it compelling enough? Is it something that others can feel that they're part of? That's another thing about that charismatic leadership and that presence that you're talking about is, can you convey the goal and then make sure that others feel that they're part of that, so that charismatic, they want to be part of something that's positive and moving forward. I tell so many groups, I don't know too many people people who get up in the morning who say, I want to fail today.
Yeah.
I simply don't want to do the best job I can. Now, they might be out there, but I haven't met them that they intentionally want to fail on stage or whatever that stage is, be it in front of their group and encouraging, positive movement forward. Here's the plan. But it's amazing how many people do fail and they don't even realize they're failing at the time. They think they've poured everything into it, or that stage fright has taken over and they'll say, well, I'm an introvert. You're an introvert, but an extrovert. I hear both of those used interchangeably.
You can be an introvert and have excellent communication skills and be an excellent leader and an excellent communicator and presenter. I have that. To me, when I hear that, to me, that's a little bit of an excuse. I understand, because many of the people I'm working with are introverts or internal processors. They process internally and think before they speak. Mm. And so, but those are strengths as well. That makes you a great listener. It makes you thoughtful in how you come at things. It can often bring a beautiful stillness to your presence, because you're often fairly present within it, within yourself. So, and also when it comes down to it, the work is ours to do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We have to take ownership of the work. Mm-hmm. Nobody else can do it for you, right?
That's right.
They really can. And it's not about being perfect. I say this all the time. The biggest problem that very, very, in my opinion, the biggest issue is that the people certainly that I work with these are high achieving people who are running things, mm-hmm. and they don't want to look bad.
Right.
And they don't want to make a mistake. The biggest issue is moving them from thinking about trying to be perfect to pivoting toward accepting excellence instead. Mm-hmm. Rather than perfection, strive for excellence. Mm-hmm. There's a world of difference between the two. Perfection is unattainable. And this can allow you to have some moments that are goofy, disastrous, messy. None of those things are bad. Mm-hmm. Because we're human. We say the wrong thing. We make mistakes. We say people's names wrong. We forget what we want to say. That just makes you more human. If you can bring your sense of humor and humanity to that moment, you can make lemonade out of lemons. Your audience can connect with you even further. They're not sitting there with a report card judging you on your skill sets necessarily. They're just rocking and rolling with you in the moment. And if you're okay with what's happened, they'll be okay with it.
That's right. That's right. Well, my last question for you, for someone who's so accomplished in writing and presenting and guiding others, what are you reading or what are you watching? I have to ask, what are you looking at?
I appreciate that you asked that, because I'm an avid reader, right? I read. But right now, and this has a little bit to do with a mastermind group that I'm involved in. I have two women that I work with that I adore, that I've been meeting with regularly for years. We meet every other week, and then we get together once a year. We get together somewhere beautiful, and we hang out for 4 or 5 days in a beautiful Airbnb, and we really brainstorm and manifest, in a sense, what we want to create for the next year. And right now, as part of that, I'm reading the series of books by Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy. 10x is easier than 2x. Who, not how, and the gap and the gain. These are brilliant books. I'm at a point in my career where I'm wanting to level up even further, Mm-hmm. I'm constantly reevaluating or evaluating where my business is and where I want it to go. And so these books are helping me get a different perspective on what's important to me, what isn't, and what I want to spend more time on and what I want to let go of.
Oh, that's fantastic. Well, Eleni, I can't say thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing all that wisdom and really some good reads to get a hold of. I truly appreciate your time.
Well, I just think the world of you, and I am thrilled to have had a nice conversation with you here. Thank you for asking. Oh, thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you to those that are listening and really sharing the show with others. Pin Leader Podcast, we couldn't do it without you. Remember, we have opportunities for you to provide feedback at info@mazeassociatesltd.com. And of course, we have the Pin Leader Path book that will be coming out in March of 2025. Make sure that you get on the wait list at www.maysassociatesltd.com. And of course, until next time.
The Pen Leader Podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Mays & Associates Ltd, creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pen Leader Podcast and share with others.